how to choose a career. This is what I would recommend. This is presumably if you're younger and you're facing the problem that everybody has in their lives, which is what do you want to do with your life, right? Now, for some people, this is not really much of a dilemma because, you've always known what you wanted to do and you're going to just do it. And it's a standard career path, okay? In which case, you don't really need much soul searching here. It's pretty obvious. However, for other people, it may not be obvious. For example, if you got some educational qualifications where you could go into many different careers based on those qualifications, now the waters are muddied a bit, right? Because you're qualified for, say, 25 different things that could all be separate careers. But the big question is, which path should you start down, right? The other reason why you might be wondering this is you have an idea of the end destination. Let's say you want to be a doctor or something, okay? But the question is, what do I need to do to get there? What type of work experience should I try and get that will most set me up to do that thing in the future? Okay? Now that's why you might be asking this question, and that's what we're going to be talking about, how to get answers to that. Okay? So let's get the obvious stuff out of the way first. The first thing that probably most people will want to do here is obviously look up the educational qualifications. That's a necessary first step. Okay? So if you have, a university in near where you live, like if you live in a city and the city has at least one big university, the obvious thing would be to go to the university, like not physically, but look up online, which you probably can do, their entrance requirements for various different faculties and see what requirements they have. So if you want to get a master's degree in a certain thing, then obviously, look at their syllabus and look at like what they need for you to enter the master's degree program. And then if that's a certain bachelor degree or some other thing, look up what the requirements at high school are for that, right? If you're not yet finished high school. That's obvious. Hopefully everybody knows how to do that. But let's get to something more challenging. Maybe you don't know if you should get education or you should get more practical job experience. What is regarded as more favorable if you want to be in a certain role? Okay, well, here's something you can do. LinkedIn is an incredible tool, and you can use LinkedIn for many, many different things. Not just the obvious things that a lot of job, career type people talk to you about, but this is an example of how LinkedIn can be the missing tool to give you the answers to these types of questions. So let's say you know what your end destination is. You want to be, the CEO of a company. Let's just take something like that. Now, the obvious question is you can't go to university to learn how to become a CEO. There's no CEO program, right? And even if there was, it probably wouldn't be sufficient to immediately walk out of that program and then just into a CEO role. Like there's a lot more to it, right? So the question is, if that's your ambition, what should you take? Now, what you can do is you can go on LinkedIn and you could do a people search and you could look up people who are currently working as CEOs. So their job title is CEO. And let's say they're in your hometown or they're in a location that you're interested in working. Okay. You can do a people search where you limit it to only people who are currently working their job title is CEO and they're physically located in your city or another region of interest to you. Okay. So you could do a search and then you can find all these results. Okay. Now, all these profiles will come up. Now, hopefully everybody is familiar with LinkedIn, but when you get on LinkedIn, you essentially see a version of somebody's resume. That's what their profile is. So you can usually see their entire work history, their education, and like the dates that they've done various things, right? And under each job, you can maybe get some detail as to what they did in that job. right? So you could look up people who are currently working as CEOs now and look at a whole bunch of them. And let's say you want to be the CEO of, I don't know, a software development company, okay? You can look up individuals who currently work as CEOs of software development companies in your city and look at their profiles. Now, if they all have engineering degrees, that suggests that you probably will need an engineering degree to be the CEO of a software development company. If they all don't have engineering degrees, that suggests that you don't need an engineering degree to work as a CEO of a software development country in your city, right? You see how this works? On the other hand, if they all have certain experiences, it all took them 10 years to come up through, sales, let's say. They all came up through sales. Not a single CEO came up through operations or HR or, accounting, right? They're all salespeople. That tells you something else. That tells you, well, first of all, it seems like I need sales to do this. That seems to be the real world data here. I may not know why I need sales, but it seems to suggest that sales is very important. Okay. So you can look up their experiences, you can see what they have, and you can start to find patterns. Okay. If they've all worked in certain roles for different amounts of time, that suggests to you that you may have to work in that role, and that's a path to becoming a CEO. Okay, so that's the first thing you can do. Now, that will tell you some things, but it won't tell you everything. As I said, it won't tell you why, all the CEOs came up through sales, for example. That you won't be able to find the answer to that just by looking at these people's profiles, right? To get the answer to something like that, you have to go to the third sort of step here, which is informational interviews. Now, hopefully everybody here knows what an informational interview. If you've never heard of an informational interview, that's okay. Hopefully everybody knows what a job interview is, right? That's what we're here for. So you know what a job interview is. You go down and you meet with somebody for the purposes of evaluating you because you've applied for a job and they're seeing if you're a suitable candidate, right? That's the purpose of the interview. An informational interview is an interview, right? So you go down and you meet with somebody face to face and they've set it up. So they've sort of invited you in, right? But it's not about a job. That's why you're not talking to them. You're not talking to them because you want them to hire you. That's not the whole point of this. It's because you want information. So basically, you've asked them a question and you're wanting to get an answer, right? So as I've said in this course where I talk about like how to do proactive networking, basically for introverts, right? A great way to do this is you connect with them on LinkedIn, okay, which is a whole thing, and you send them a note, and you say the most basic possible thing that you can say is you can say, hello, I would very much like to get your expert opinion on this industry, where it's going, and what skills, in your opinion, what skills might be important for the future. Please let me know if, I can maybe have 30 minutes of your time. We can maybe grab a coffee. You suggest the date, time, and place, and I'll be there. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Right? And you can send this out as a template to multiple people, right? And you would send this out, in our example, to the people that you found on LinkedIn who are currently working as CEOs of software companies in your city. We're talking about CEOs in this example, but don't be intimidated by the CEO title. I was a former CEO. It's really not that big of a deal. I mean, we're not talking about superstar Fortune 500 company CEOs. We're talking about like the thousands of CEOs that are in your city, right? Wherever you are. All the companies you see, they're all run by people. And, it's really not that big of a deal. It's not like you're some kind of weird, untouchable person. But anyway, they're just executives. And executives, you may not know this, but executives, part of their job is fielding unsolicited queries from the public. They occasionally get these as part of their job, and their job is to respond to them, right? It could be a new supplier. It could be a member of the press. It could be, a potential partner or a regulator, or, someone who's just setting up a new company and they could end up being your supplier, or your institutional customer. They just want to get to know a bit more about your operation. So it's bad business to ignore these and to just tell people to get lost, right? That's what a lot of executives do. They sort of field these responses. And if you don't know, the general rule is to meet with somebody and talk to them, unless, assuming there's no red flags about what message they sent you. So you can easily do this. I've done hundreds of these in my lifetime. I built a consulting business basically doing this. I just pretty much exclusively just met with CEOs. So as a coincidence there. But the idea is that you would set up an informational interview. You'd send out several requests for an informational interview for all these CEOs. Now, it's a numbers game, so maybe 90% don't respond, but 10% do, and they say, sure, I guess you could come right here. Let's do this location, this date and time. And if you are able to do that, then you can do this. You show up. Usually it's Starbucks is a great place to meet people. You set up a meeting. It's professional, but yet it's kind of casual, and it's not on somebody's turf. And if they're willing to meet you at a Starbucks, that means they're willing to get out of their office and off their location to come and meet you, which shows that there's a commitment there. They genuinely are taking this seriously. If someone says, yeah, come to my office, this time, it's like they're not lifting a finger to do anything for you. So that's generally less of a commitment. But this is something that you can do. And you would sit down with the person and say, hey, it's great. Thank you very much for meeting with me. I find, your career very interesting because I'm just starting out and my ambition is to become, a CEO in this industry. And I'm very much wondering if I could ask you a couple of questions about your career, namely, is it necessary for a CEO of a software company to have come up through sales? And if so, why? Something like this. And that's how you can get the answers to these questions. So you wouldn't talk to just one person. You'd talk to several, and you'd ask them this question and several others. And at the end of it, you know exactly what to do. You know exactly why people say to do that. And the other great thing is now you have contacts that are CEOs. So if ever you have a question about that, you can potentially call them up, right? So if you wanted to learn how to become a doctor and you had questions about which type of medicine I should go into and which one is tougher and which one is better, set up a bunch of informational interviews with doctors in your city or your town or your region and start asking them these type of questions. What do you recommend for someone just starting out? What do you recommend I do? Do you recommend I take this program, or what are your thoughts on that? What would be better for young people today, to do this or to do that? And you get this information, and that will give you such insight into what career path you should take, if it's suited to you, what you can expect, how hard it might be, what the risks are. And that's a great way to make an informed decision of what your career should be. Okay? How to choose a career. So if you're passionate about something and you're really seriously thinking of doing it, don't do it blind. Know exactly what you're doing and getting into. And the brilliant thing about doing this is if you do the third part, which is informational interviews, which I highly recommend, is that you've got a bunch of contacts. You could pick up that phone and call one of these doctors or CEOs or whoever it is that you were talking to and ask them questions along the way. Right? So that's what I have to say about that. Hopefully that makes sense.